Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to embark on a journey like no other. Welcome to the Glum Lot Podcast,
your go-to destination for a unique blend of recovery and discovery.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Mark. And in this podcast, we will endeavor to create a safe and uplifting space for our guests and listeners to share their stories with sincerity and a touch of humor.
Remember, we are not a Glum Lot. The Glum Lot Podcast is more than just a source of entertainment. It's a beacon of hope, proving that even in the darkest moments, recovery is possible. Every story we share carries the power to inspire positive change.
So buckle up, get ready to listen, and join us in discovering the strength that lies within every individual's journey. This is the Glum Lot Podcast, where humor meets hope. All right, Mr. Brett, we are here for episode number 14, and I just wanted to announce that as of today, we now have a website.
Woohoo!
Yep, it is the glumlotpodcast.com.
Where'd you come up with that?
I made it up. I didn't even get your approval for it, but I did it anyway. I bought the URL, and so check out the website. We've got every episode on there, as well as links to everything, and there's an About Us page that tells a little bit about us, our little story.
Yeah, in case you wanted to know who
there's
these
contact,
people are.
Yep, there's a contact page, which basically just has our email on it. So.
Yeah.
Hey, we did get our first Canadian download.
Oh,
Yesterday.
No kidding.
Oh, yeah. So we got a lot of uptalkers
They're such
listening
kind
to us.
people.
Yes, they are.
I wonder if alcoholic Canadians are just as kind.
Something tells me they're not. Yeah, especially the French-Canadian ones. So what's on your mind today?
You ever gotten your ass kicked?
Besides by alcohol?
Yeah.
Of course.
We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
Why was that? Why do you think?
Well, on occasion I deserved it. And a lot of it was the inability to walk away.
The inability to walk away. So, yeah, I was right. And I was going to teach him a lesson. And, there's some similarity there. And, I ultimately got my ass kicked. And you mentioned alcohol, and I certainly got my ass kicked there. I was completely unwilling to do anything different except for keep going back to that bottle. And guess what it did every time? It fought and
kicked your ass.
Kicked my ass.
Yeah.
It kicked
That's
my ass.
Kind of how we get here, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If we're lucky.
Yeah, if we're lucky.
Because some people never surrender.
No.
And it ends up kicking their ass until they're dead.
Yeah, no.
Or miserable or locked up or,
I just had no ass left.
So.
I've since gained it all back, however.
Oh, well, that's good. I mean, that's one of the perks of the program.
I have a lovely double bubbler.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes.
And TMI.
Yes. So we should probably change the subject now.
Go ahead.
Well, I think we got another guest.
Oh, we do?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So this is a guest I've never met before.
I'm so excited
about
that.
So that's kind of cool. I like that, too, because it always opens my eyes,
Yeah, so this is a person that I met through pure circumstance, through sporting events that I was attending with children. Mm-hmm. And, it's just somebody that I was hanging out with quite a bit, actually. And I did notice there was one thing strange about him.
What's that?
He didn't drink.
Uh-huh.
And I don't remember the exact way it came up, but I was like, okay, that makes so much more sense. And I was already in the program at that point. And I instantly had a love for the guy. No doubt about it. And his program was solid. Everything that he said, I was like, yup, this is my kind of people.
When we are in the outside world and we unknowingly encounter each other, and then we find out we become very fast friends.
Oh, unbelievable.
So
and that's exactly how this played out.
What's this gentleman's name?
His name is Dave.
So without further ado, then, let's welcome Dave. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we welcome you into the Glum Lot Podcast community, and we're just going to start right off with your sobriety date.
All right, so I actually just celebrated. It was St. Patrick's Day, so March 17th, 2013.
Who
Oh,
gets
okay, St.
sober on
Patrick's
St.
Day.
Patrick's Day?
Just like any good alcoholic, I even screwed up that day.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
So let's rewind in your life. And do you remember taking your first drink?
I actually do. I was probably about 14 years old.
Uh-huh.
One of my friends got a 2-liter of wine coolers, and we snuck off into the woods.
Fantastic.
And we had Swisher Sweets and a bottle of wine coolers.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's a party. And so what happened? Were you to the point where you caught a buzz?
Caught a buzz. And I'm not sure if it was the alcohol or the Swisher Sweets.
Right.
It was one of the two because
Yeah.
it was the first time we did either of them.
Yeah. And so what did you think of the feeling back then? Do you remember?
It felt great, and I got a little nauseous. I'll have to say that, but the
That
feeling
was the cigars.
that was the cigars.
Yeah.
Right.
But the feeling that I had in my head was definitely something that felt really good, very euphoric.
Yes. And how did you progress from that point on?
Well, from that point, it just continued. Every chance we got, we could get some stuff and kind of sneak off. And unfortunately, also at that time, I was a good athlete, so it kind of affected that a little bit as well.
Okay.
But we took our opportunities when we got it. We had certain places that we'd go, and looking back, we were very dangerous with things where we'd drive around in the cars drinking the 2 liters because at that time it was a plastic jug, and you could, it's like we were chugging 2 liters of soda.
Yeah. It's funny how when we're kids, the fact that you're doing something wrong is part of the allure, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And then, it creeps up on you, man. And so at what point did you start to notice or did you start to think that this might be an issue?
Well, it wasn't until later on in life.
Yeah.
Because when I was young, I was still that fearless person. One of the things that I still didn't see it as an issue, I was at a high school party, and I was supposed to leave the party, and my friend said, well, I can come back and get you. And at that time, we were fearless. We could never have anything happen to us.
Right.
And unfortunately, on his way back to get me from the party, he had been drinking as well, and he passed away.
Really?
Coming back to
shit.
get me.
Wow.
It was during our high school basketball season. I got thrown off the basketball team because of that. But
This is a real wrinkle in your
Wow,
life.
Yeah.
things got real quick.
yeah, I was 15 years old, but I did not see it as a problem at that time.
Right. So you're not seeing alcohol as part of what happened really as a big deal. It was more just like an unfortunate situation.
Circumstance, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
When you later in life, did you look back on that and think, holy shit, that was one of my first warning signs?
Oddly enough, that particular instance did not come back into my head. I was talking at a meeting one night. They asked me to do a speaker meeting, and it's the first time, as I said, my sobriety date's 11 years ago. It hit me about 3 months ago that actually happened.
Wow.
It was completely blocked and gone from my head until that point.
Oh, that's crazy.
Buried.
Yeah.
So you move on from there, from high school and getting booted from the basketball team. Does your disease progress?
It really didn't take a hold of me at that point. It was still, it was like a long pause
Right.
for maybe a year or two. But then, here and there, little times of having drinking. Most of my drinking career wasn't a daily drinker. I was more of a binge drinker.
Yep.
Where it would be absolute drunk for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, and then nothing for months at a time.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. I was a maintenance drinker, so I just had the daily. But when I hear about binge drinking, I'm like, how do you do that? I mean, not that it's good, but just that I couldn't go a day without catching some kind of a buzz from the booze. Mine was more of a self-medicating thing, But some people do have that thing where they get going and it just spirals, and then it comes crashing down and they're good for a while, And that was you.
And that was me to a T.
So that's
So-
almost like the physical allergy is just so strong already, right? If you're doing a weeks on end binge, you obviously are having a hard time just even stopping it at all.
Do you realize in the middle of these binges that it's a problem?
It would be. And, it's one of those, okay, I got to stop this. And let's say it was a 3-week-long binge. Probably around week 2, it's like, I need to stop this. But it took me another week to be able to
Put the brakes on?
to really put the brakes on it.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And it would scare me enough that I would walk away from it for 2 or 3 months, 6 months, whatever it happens to be.
Did you consciously know, like you say, you walk away for 2-3 months, did you consciously know when you were confronted with that first drink the next time that you were apt to binge again? Or
Yes.
was it just, so you knew it was going to happen?
I knew it was going to happen where I wouldn't go out drinking, if I went out for dinner, I would have soda because I had that feeling that if I drank, it was going to be game on again.
Now, would anything trigger that?
No.
It would just be I'm going out tonight and then whammo.
You know what triggered it was success, failure, being happy, being sad.
Days that ended in Y.
Rich before,
Yeah.
Wow. So, to me, that's just sounds so weird because I was all in all the time. And, it's so weird to hear that you could take that long break and be okay and not think of a drink, right?
Absolutely.
Not consciously have to fight it, but that once you cross that line, it's like you are going Mach 1 immediately.
It's almost like the physical allergy started first and then the mental may have come after.
Yeah. And my first real sign that I had a problem, it was back in 1997. Planning on getting married. We were making wedding plans and everything with my fiance at the time. And we ordered Chinese food. And I said, I'll go pick it up. Now, if you know anything about golf, I'm about a driver and a sand wedge away from the Chinese restaurant. Okay. But I drove there anyway. It was right down at the bottom of the hill from where we lived. And there was a bar right next to it. Mm-hmm. Well, I got there early, went to the bar. 4 hours later, came home with cold Chinese food, drunk. The very next day, I went to my first meeting.
Oh, wow.
That was 1997. Haven't been sober since then.
I'm doing the math. And
that's more than 11 years.
Yeah,
Let me ask you this. Before you reached that point of the Chinese restaurant and the meeting, what was going through your head when you would be in these binges?
Nothing really.
You were
that I was just enjoying it, and
right.
I was just in a complete fog, and I would always say to myself, I'm allowed to do this.
Right.
Kind of thing. It was, I'm okay doing this because I'll quit again.
Okay. So you are telling yourself it's manageable.
Yes, absolutely.
Something happened that day that let you know that this isn't manageable anymore and I can't stop on my own.
I have a feeling I know what it might be.
Well, I was kind of in one of my longer binges leading up to that point, and she said it's either me or the drink, and I went to my first meeting, and I did not go for me.
Okay.
I went to shut everybody else up in my life and not deal with it. And as a good alcoholic, I started going to 3 or 4 meetings every day for the first month and a half. Uh-huh. So instead of spending my time in the bar, I'm spending my time in the meetings. I didn't get a sponsor. I didn't get a home group. I wouldn't stick around the meetings and talk to anybody. But I was going to 4 hours worth of meetings.
Yeah.
After about 6 weeks, she said, do you still need to go to meetings? I said, nope, I'm cured.
I'm good.
And I didn't go to any more meetings.
Shocker.
But I also didn't pick up a drink for 2 years.
Wow.
And as they say in the program, I was white knuckling it.
Yes.
And I heard in one of the meetings this time around that made complete sense to what I was doing at that time. I was an alcoholic. I took the alcohol out. I had all of my ick left.
Right. All the
for those
ism.
2 years.
Nice.
Yeah. Wow. What was that like?
Remained.
That was, when somebody says it was white knuckling, I was still the selfish person, fly off the handle at any dime. Probably even more so because I didn't have the alcohol to temper it.
Right.
But nothing changed.
Yeah. You know, I've always, in fact, we were just at a meeting, Brett and I, we just came back from a meeting, and part of what I shared was that I don't need alcohol to be an alcoholic. You know, that the ism, as you say, is still there. And if I don't work on it, it's going to get worse, and it's going to come out, and it's going to be harmful to me and everyone around me, you know, without the alcohol.
And that's why I was living for 2 years.
Yeah.
Was there any kind of spiritual presence in your life through any of this at all?
No.
History?
No. When I was a kid, my grandmother took us to church, and it was a Christian Science church. We'd go to Sunday school, all of that. But then she got remarried and moved away, and my parents weren't very religious, so we didn't go to church.
Yeah.
Leading up to the marriage, my wife at that time and her whole family were baptized in the Episcopal Church. My family had left it up to us to whatever church we wanted to go to. I did get baptized, but it was for the ceremony only. It had nothing. It was all my head. It wasn't my heart.
Yeah. It was something you probably
Sounds
thought
like
you
your
should do and doing it for
first
others.
round of AA. We
Yeah,
call it like that,
right.
right?
For everybody else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you get through these 2 years of white knuckling it. You're not picking up a drink. Are you tempted to?
I really wasn't.
Okay.
I really wasn't.
She must have really gotten to you.
Yes, and it was nice not having people on my back
Oh.
for that period of time.
So consequences are keeping you from picking up a drink.
yes.
Okay. And so obviously that changed. Tell us about that.
It was, I was working and I went into a restaurant, ran into some people that I knew from a previous job, and it was lunchtime.
All normal behavior. by
All
the
normal
way.
behavior. And they were having a couple of cocktails. I went over, I was talking to them, and without even a second thought, I ordered a beer. And I had one beer with lunch. And I walked away from it that day. Mm-hmm. She was away, and I called her in Florida. I said, hey, here's what happened today. And
Being honest.
being honest, she goes, okay, well, you had one. I only had one that week.
Permission.
So I waited, and then another week or two went by, and then I went out with some friends, and I had two. I did that good controlled drinking
My goodness.
because this is what I can do now. Now I'm cured. But pretty soon, that binge drinking no longer was binge drinking. That binge drinking started to turn into, like you said, that maintenance drinking,
Okay.
where all of a sudden, instead of just going out to have two, yes, I may have two when you see me, but I also have a hidden bottle of vodka that I'm taking sips of.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know what? It's cunning, baffling, and powerful. And so if it's going to find a way,
Absolutely.
unless we do the work. So you start going down this path, you become more of a maintenance drinker every day?
Not every day. More so, still probably once or twice a week, where it's just kind of the keeping the flow going, knowing that we would go out for dinners on Friday or Saturday night so I can have a couple of drinks, but maybe on a Monday, Tuesday, having some sips there to kind of keep it away and kind of keep me at a level.
And so you've had enough AA and you've had enough experience that this isn't good and it's not normal behavior, right?
Absolutely.
So that lived in your head?
It lived in my head a little bit,
Okay.
but enough of the drinking would override it.
Yeah. So the denial is still there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so obviously something changed.
Yep.
What happened?
I just continued down that road, and so we had moved a few times, and I'll say the marriage was a little rocky, and she was also my drinking buddy.
Ruh-roh.
And we would be out, and we could drink all night long together. But that is not a good recipe for a good marriage either.
No.
Let's just say, as people will say, your disease wants you either dead in an asylum or drunk, and mine wanted me dead. And there was a point where it was so bad that I did end up swallowing a couple handfuls of pills
No
and
kidding.
trying to take my own life.
That was just because you just felt completely out of control.
I was
and hopeless?
completely out of control. There was nothing left for me.
So let me ask you this. In your mind and in your soul, did it just take you to such a dark place and you saw no way out?
I saw nothing in the future. Mm-hmm. Now, and here's the thing. We were married, had 3 kids. I saw nothing for my future.
Did anybody on the outside know?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing on the outside.
It's a very
You were
lonely
living-
place to be,
it's just
which
like we
makes it
talked
worse.
about. Yeah, just like we talked on social media. We have this whole other life that we're putting out there, but it's not anywhere near the fact. And meanwhile, here you are taking pills and probably nobody really knew about it.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, in the later throes of alcoholism, we get really good at hiding it. And, we might not be able to hide it from everybody. We believe we are. But we do become good at it,
Yeah.
We put a brave face on and we act like everything's fine when we're dying inside. And I think part of that is part of the denial. We're telling ourselves that I'm going to be okay. I'm going to somehow get my way out of this until it gets to the point that you got.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely.
So was that a turning point?
It was the start. It was the beginning of a turning point. I woke up in the hospital and surrounded by lots of machines and actually handcuffed to the bed.
Okay.
tasting all of that charcoal taste that you have.
Now, let me just
Yeah.
back up for a second. So you took this handful of pills intending to perhaps take your own life.
Yes.
Did somebody find you?
I had called 2 or 3 people and said, I'm sorry, and then just hung up the phone.
Okay,
And
so people knew.
they knew.
Yeah.
They knew.
Do you think there was a cry for help on your end?
Looking back, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I kept it inside all that time, and that was that cry. And fortunately, they found me. Woke up in the hospital, as I say, with all these machines around me.
Yeah.
Fortunately, no internal damage, no kidney damage, no nothing. But I looked over, and there was a almost like from the Virgin Islands type accent, a Catholic priest sitting there. And he walks over and he puts his hand on me and he says, your mission here is not done. I'll come back and see you.
Your mission here is not done, man.
And he walked away. I never saw him in the hospital again.
Really?
That's
God moment.
and honestly, it's one of those things with clear mind and clear heart looking back, that was one of those God shots, but that still wasn't enough to get me sober.
What happened from that point on? So you're in the hospital, you're in bad shape. You get out of the hospital eventually.
Yep.
Do they try to put you into any kind of counseling or anything like that?
So I actually went from the hospital over to the psych ward for about 3 weeks until they released me. And then at that point, I had to move in with my dad and stepmom for a period of time.
Now,
for
when
a few
you were
months.
when they took you over to the mental health area, did they suggest alcoholism was a problem for you, or did no one know?
No one really knew.
Okay.
It was more of treating the psychiatric end of things, the why behind everything, and still like that good alcoholic, I'm still lying to those people.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was all. I had a major depressive disorder.
Let me tell you how bad my life is.
That's
This
it.
is why I did this.
Yeah,
Let
my
me show
wife,
you how
my
horrible
job.
it is.
You'd
Right.
be the same way.
Right. You would do it too.
Okay, so you fooled them.
Yep. And I got
Enough to
out of
get
the
out,
hospital.
yep.
And then I moved in with, as I say, my dad in Pennsylvania for a period of time. And I started going to meetings. Now, they didn't trust me. I don't blame them. They would drive me 12 miles each way 3 times a day to go to AA meetings.
Wow.
And I will remember we couldn't find the place the first time we went. And where it was located is in the basement of a bar.
Wow. Kooky.
When there was an alcohol counseling place right across the street, and we walked in there because I thought it might be in that building.
Yeah.
And we're talking to them. They go, no, it's across the street and it's in the basement. They said, now you're to the back of the bar. There's 2 sets of stairs. There's one that goes downstairs and one that goes upstairs.
Jesus.
One goes to damnation, one goes to salvation. You choose.
Oh, man.
That is cool.
Talk about I stood at a turning point.
I mean, I thought we were all
Jeez.
just church basement dwellers, and you were in the bottom.
We're
of
in the
a
bottom
bar.
of the bar, and you would hear them walking
belly of the
around
beast.
upstairs.
Yeah, give us a sense of your of the way you were thinking when you start going to these meetings in Pennsylvania. Are you there for you now? Do you realize you need this?
I was there for me, and I was scared as hell.
Yeah.
I had no clue. As I say, the attempt on my life left me empty with no direction of anything to do. And here I am finally beginning to admit I have a problem with no direction. Mm-hmm. And even being there, knowing I was going to move back home to the area that I was in, I didn't get a sponsor. I didn't start working
You really
steps.
didn't start laying down
I
roots.
didn't start laying a
Even
foundation.
after these things were suggested to you?
Even after they were.
For shame.
So do you have some hope at this point? Or are you still thinking, I'm really in trouble here?
Well, the interesting thing is this is back in the hometown where I grew up.
Okay.
So there's people in these rooms that I grew up with drinking with.
Yeah.
And when they would say, oh, I'm sober, and you'd get talking to them, they say, I've got this amount of time. In my head, I'm saying, BS, I know the way you drink. There is no way that
Right.
you're sober.
You're lying.
So I'm really not getting any type of foundation out of it.
Kinda
Okay,
like
For
so
me.
It sounds like there's no surrender yet.
No, absolutely
There's
not.
a lot of pain, and we want relief from the pain, but you haven't hit that point of surrender yet.
Correct.
So you continue to go to all those meetings, and then eventually you move back.
And I moved
right?
back.
And what happens?
And, my drinking career wasn't over yet.
Jeez, it's so, when
Pay
we hear
attention.
these stories, it's like people are thinking, what's it going to take? you know?
It took a lot more pain.
Okay. So what happened?
So I continued on that. Obviously, I was no longer going to be married, so that the alcohol affected that.
Yeah.
But then I would continue. If my kids were with me, I wasn't drinking. As soon as they were going back, or a day or two before they were going to leave, I started planning where I'm getting all of my alcohol from, how long I can drink for those periods of time before I had to put it down, so that way I would be okay when they were with me.
Right.
And the odd thing is, we always used to play this game that, Daddy's hands shake a little bit. Here, who wants to put the key in the lock today to unlock the door?
Oh, boy.
Because I couldn't even get a key in the lock. I was having the shakes that bad.
It's amazing the lengths that we will go to protect our drinking.
Absolutely.
Including not drinking for X amount of time so we don't get held responsible, and then because we know we're going to be freed from that responsibility, and then we go crazy.
And that excitement when they're gone. Oh, boy.
Absolutely. So I had I had a sponsor at the time, and I will say sponsor in name only.
Yeah.
From the standpoint, he would say, "Okay, we're going to meet next Tuesday. Read this." I would call him on Monday and say, "Hey, I haven't read it yet," and he'd say, "Okay, we'll meet next Tuesday." He couldn't want my sobriety more than I did.
Exactly.
However, I still remember, and it's odd that my sobriety date 11 years later matches up to the same exact days that everything fell on. It was the Thursday night before St. Patrick's Day, which was on a Sunday that year as well. In a drunken stupor, I called my sponsor, said, "I have to go to court on Monday. Will you go with me?" He said, "Absolutely."
Now he knows you're drinking.
And he could tell, and later on he told me he knew I was drinking.
Yeah.
So I drank Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday. I said, I'm not drinking Sunday because I'm going to be in court early Monday morning.
But isn't that a testament to the people of AA right there? Like, what normal person would say, yeah, I'll go to court with you. They hardly know you, and you're drinking, but they're still willing to go. I mean, come on. That's crazy.
It's absolutely incredible. And those are the things that have been taught to me that I try to emulate now.
Oh, yeah.
Went to court. Almost lost the custody of my kids. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, I turned, I looked at him, I said, I've been lying to you. And after we left the courthouse, I found a quiet, serene place. I'm overlooking the river, the sunlight's hitting it. Every year I go back and I take a picture there. And I called my dad and I said, I've been lying to you. I finally started telling the truth to everybody.
You finally started the surrender process, right?
Absolutely. So the next day, Tuesday, I go into one of the rooms and they said, and now I'd been in these rooms for about 9 months collecting sobriety chips.
Yeah.
Still drinking.
Slogan sobriety.
Still drinking because people would say, Dave, how are you doing? I say, fantastic, because I had to be the best drunk or out there.
Now, do you think some people knew, though?
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
They had to have.
Yeah. I've sponsored guys that were drinking and picking up chips before, and we all knew, you know?
Yeah. Oh. I mean, you could probably smell it off me coming in the rooms.
Yeah.
I knew where to sit in the rooms where the air conditioner was hitting me so I'd be cooler and I wouldn't sweat.
Man, are we not master planners?
We are MacGyvers.
If we could just use that for something better.
If we could tap into that.
Who thinks about sitting at the right place where the air's blowing so it doesn't blow
What are you, a secret
on us?
agent?
Exactly.
I did, because that's how I planned getting in bed at night afterwards. I had to figure that out. Put the cat right between our heads so it would be a muffler.
So you start making these admissions to those that are close to you, and what becomes of it?
So as I say, I go to the room, and one of the things, and I hate to use these types of phrases, but I'm not a good person for the kinder, softer, gentler way. I don't need the pat on the back. I need the kick in the butt.
Do you need the tough love?
And on that Tuesday, I raised my hand. I said, I've been living a lie. This is a meeting I went to all the time. It was a 9:15 meeting, and it was going down the row, and it sounded like the teacher from the Peanuts. Everybody was saying, don't worry, keep coming back. You'll get it. And it was wah, 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 until it got to one guy in the corner. And he simply said, have you had enough pain yet? Now, he added a few extra colorful words in there.
Those are good.
Those are good, and it got my attention. And that's the message I heard that day. And I was supposed to go away for work that Friday. And I was going to be staying in a hotel, nobody around. with a restaurant in the basement of the hotel,
Yeah.
a TGI Fridays. And my grand sponsor at the time, I said, what do I do? He goes, I can't tell you to quit your job. I can't tell you to keep your job. I can't tell you to go. I can't tell you to stay. All I can do is tell you to pray over it. And I said, okay. I started praying and praying. And the message I got was to go. And now I'm driving out to Buffalo, New York. And
Go Bills.
and the craze at that time was all of the flavored vodkas. And I'm seeing every billboard, every sign you
I
could
was a
possibly
connoisseur.
imagine.
You're hypersensitive to it at this point, probably,
And
right?
I see everything. And I where the road kind of starts going more north to Niagara Falls, I said to myself, I can never drink again. I literally was doing 85 miles an hour in 4 lanes of traffic, and I felt like I got hit in the back of the head by a 2x4. And I pulled all the way over to the side of the road because it's the first time it dawned on me, even though I've heard it 1,000 times in the rooms, it's one day at a time. All I need to do is make it till I put my head on the pillow tonight.
That's key.
When
It
Dave
really
and
is.
when
That
we first
is
met,
key.
that was the first story he told me, and I was like,
Yeah.
wow, that's...
You know what? It's impossible for us to not drink forever. It's impossible. But we cannot drink today,
Exactly.
and that's all it's asked.
And that was the first time I realized that. I was in absolute tears, called my grand sponsor. He said, I think you're starting to get it. So I go, I do my work in Niagara Falls. I had already gotten online and found a meeting that night. It was about 6 blocks away. And I met all the people I was working with. They're like, hey, we're going down having a couple of drinks and some food. I went down, cordial. Hey, how's everybody doing? Now, I've only been away from the drink for about 5 days at this point.
Yikes.
And I said, no, I'm meeting some friends. So I walked the 6 blocks over to it was a meeting in a hospital. I get there early. I'm talking to this older gentleman. And he had 54 years of continuous
Good
sobriety
Lord.
at that time.
Yikes.
And I said I was in town for work and so on and so forth. We get talking. And he says, Are you in town for the roundup? I go, what roundup? And he says, the roundup over at the hotel. He says, hang on. And he yells to somebody else. He goes, what hotel's that roundup at?
Come on.
The hotel was at the same one that I was staying at.
So the roundup was at your hotel?
Yes, work had placed, my higher power worked through somebody at my job that booked this hotel 4 months in advance to put me in a hotel with 250 other recovering alcoholics the exact weekend I needed it.
Yeah, so explain what a roundup is for people that don't know.
So a roundup is, especially like in the areas we're at, it is just massive speakers, and it's just one big giant meeting that's going on for days on end.
Just a weekend of
Dinners
fellowship.
and lots of fellowship. Some have talent shows,
Yep.
all these different things going on. But it's just so much fellowship from all over the area.
And having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine.
So you're there at this hotel. You've obviously, something has happened in your life this weekend. It's like freaking magic for you. And you're,
Yeah.
right?
If I were to write a movie script, I couldn't write it any
Yeah.
better than what happened.
Yep.
And after I found out is at the hotel, again, for the second time that day, I broke down into tears. And I called my grand sponsor and I said, listen, here's what's going on. He goes, now do you get it? Your higher power wants you sober. There's something for you here. And that's when I said, it is time for me. The rubber meets the road. That was my turning point. I had my moment of honesty. I had my moment of clarity. Now I needed to do the work.
Yes.
And nothing was going to stop me
So
at that point.
weekend was a huge turning point for you.
Absolutely.
Your higher power revealed himself in many ways to you.
Including a psychic change,
Yes.
clearly.
Yes.
And going forward, what happened?
That it ended up being my grand sponsor. And again, I need that tough love. After about 3 months of working with him and him taking me through the book, I said to him, I go, will you be my sponsor? And in such a gruff way of me needing that tough love, he says, hey, jackass, I've been your sponsor for 3 months. You're just too stupid to realize it. And this is the way he had to speak to me.
Yeah.
But that's what resonated with me.
Yeah.
And from that moment forward, when he said, read this, I read this. When he said, do this, I did this. And I started to learn about service. There was something simple where I went to New York City for work, and I called the service center trying to find a meeting. And they said, oh, the meeting's right around the hotel. I'll walk over and get you and walk you over. I said, no, don't worry. I'll get it. I'm no problem with that. I call my sponsor, and again, he calls me names, and he says, you just took away their joy. You took away their service to help you. And that also made me start realizing these little things we do day in and day out are service for people. And if he had told me, go stand in the corner for half an hour a day on your head and it'll get you sober, I was willing to do it at that point.
So your willingness was finally there.
Absolutely.
You're working your program. You're working the stops. You're
and
working
learning
with
about
a sponsor.
humility.
Yep. And things are turning around in your life.
Absolutely turning around.
Talk about how your life was changing.
So as my life was changing, my relationship with my kids got better. Mm-hmm. I started to learn how to handle situations. Wasn't 100% great at it yet. And again, I've had these little things where, my higher powers just continue to interject into my life right when I need it. From that standpoint, my eyes were open and I saw how great life could be. And I remember one time I came home and my daughter says to me, she goes, Dad, I think the meetings are working.
How about
I
that?
said, what do you mean you think the meetings are working? And she says, you don't yell as much as you used to.
How about that?
Yeah, that serenity is noticeable.
Absolutely.
So that was clearly you haven't drank since then.
Correct.
Right? And it's been 11 years.
11 years.
What's happened since then? Your involvement with fellowship, sponsorship, anything?
Well, and it's interesting, even with sponsorship. I've sponsored people along the way. I did have a situation where one of the fellows I was sponsoring was similar to me, where didn't really put in the work and effort. And unfortunately, he ended up passing away from alcohol. Yeah. And I took a lot of that on myself. Yeah. So I didn't sponsor people for quite a while because it was in my head that am I responsible for this person's death?
Could I have done something more?
What else could I have done? Could I have reached out?
I've killed 4 sponsees. And, you do question yourself. But what I learned from that eventually was that, like you said earlier, I can't want them to get clean more than they want to get clean. It just doesn't work. And who am I to think I'm so special that I'm going to get somebody? I can't get anybody sober. All I can do is share my experience, strength, and hope with them. And if they want to open up and they have questions, I can answer their questions. I can go to meetings with them, but I can't get them sober,
Absolutely.
And I think in more cases than not, we fail at that. Not they don't always die, but sometimes they leave and we just never see them again. This really is for a minority of people that come in that are given this gift. And, I always talk about this on these podcasts, but when I came in, they said, you put down the drink and do the right things, that your life is going to get better beyond your wildest dreams. Was this the case for you?
It was. And I've actually talked to some of my sponsees about this because over the years, one of them was thinking, beyond my wildest dreams, I'm going to have the house, I'm going to have the boat. The materialistic things. I said, for me, my life beyond my wildest dreams is to be present. To be present for my kids, to be present for my employer, to be present for other alcoholics. That gift that I have to just be in the moment and understand the gift that I have, that's what makes me living beyond my wildest dreams.
Yeah.
12, 13 years ago, I shouldn't have been here at all.
Right.
And here I am having this life that is beyond what I could ever have imagined.
And I can attest to it because I was drinking when I had first met you. And I noticed those things about you, right? Even before I knew anything about it, right? And I always noticed those things. I always saw your dedication to the kids. You were always talking about them, always interested and wanted to share those things. And I just, man, that was so cool. And then when I found out, and after I had stopped drinking, that just blew me away. And again, made sense. Everything came together. And it's true. That's the person that we become. For sure.
We had a guest on a couple podcasts ago that said I lead an ordinary life. And who knew that that's what I really wanted? You know, and the chance to help someone and the chance to give of ourselves is really what we're after. You know, we want a purpose, not a sports car. You know, we want honest relationships, not a big house. You know, if you get a couple of those things, that's fine too. But I think we get to the point where we realize that's not the end game. You know, those are just things that come and go, you know. Those are transient things. But the things that we develop in ourselves and in our fellowship and our friends and our relationships with other people, that's where the real payoff is.
Absolutely.
You know?
And as I had said earlier, you know, when I was around for the 9 months and just kind of dabbling and somebody would say, Dave, how you doing? I'd say, fantastic. What I learned is it's okay to be okay.
Yeah.
I don't have to be up here. I don't have to be down here. I'm okay being okay.
You're comfortable in your own skin. That's huge. I didn't have that for a long ass time, you know, without alcohol.
Absolutely.
What would you tell somebody who is either contemplating doing something about their drinking or is new in the program?
You know, the biggest thing that I always try to stress is to find your people. Find different meetings. You might not agree with the way all meetings are run, but make sure that you take that one nugget that's going to keep you sober for that day. Because if you can change by 1 degree, just one piece of information, and you go to a meeting a day, at the end of the year, you have 365 things that you didn't know about.
Right.
So you're starting to fill your toolbox up. So it's important to be in the meetings, but it's also important to be there before the meetings, after the meetings. Part of this is also relationship building.
Sure is.
I'm having a relationship with my higher power. How do I get that? Well, I need to see somebody that has what I want, that the way they carry themselves, the peace and serenity when I look at them. I need to approach that person and say, hey, how did you do it?
Right, and that's where we hear those messages in the rooms and on the phone and in personal relationships we have with people that are in recovery. We get those answers. And I was going to say one thing, you talked about the 365 nuggets. My thing is I'm going along through the year accumulating these 365 nuggets and forgetting 360 of them. So I've got 5 kicking around the noggin, and that's like I just got to keep going, keep gathering, because they're coming right back out the other end. You know what I mean?
Well, as soon as I hear nuggets, you know.
Yeah.
I'm
Dipping
thinking,
sauce.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we know that about me. But,
All right. Well, it was great to hear your story, and I really appreciate you coming in and sharing with us. And I think somebody's probably going to get something out of this.
You know, I
really do.
appreciate you guys having me in, and you know, it's anytime I talk, anytime before a meeting, even coming on here, I just, you know, one thing I always do is I say a little prayer to myself. I say, God, please speak through me. Use my experience, strength, and hope that I might help at least one other alcoholic, even if that alcoholic is me.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. Well, until then, I'm Mark.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Dave.
As we wrap up another episode of the Glum Lot Podcast, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you who tuned in today. Navigating the path to recovery from alcohol and other substances is a journey filled with challenges, triumphs, and self-discovery. Remember, we're not affiliated with Alcoholics Anonymous, but we're here to provide a safe space for open conversations about the complexities of recovery. Your stories, courage, and resilience inspire us and our listeners alike. If you or someone you know is on the transformative journey, know that you're not alone. Join us next time as we continue to explore the diverse facets of recovery. Until then, stay strong, stay connected, and remember that each day is a step towards a brighter, sober tomorrow. Thank you for being part of the Glum Lot community.